Where's the sound trip ever taken?
Hey everybody, so it's me, Jared Minikheim, aka Jokey Pants. You may know me as Jokey Pants from all the Oddcast stuff I do. You may notice there's no video on this. That's part of what I'm going to be talking about here. So the first episode, I did a generalization about my life, some things that had happened to me, things that I'd be talking about, going over, things of that nature. It took me a while to do the second episode because I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. You know, how exactly do I want to do this deep dive? How exactly do I want to break things down? I decided not to do video because video, it's just me. There's no reason to have anything else on screen anyway, and there's no reason for me to have my background. You know, like that's all nerdy stuff, whatnot. Doesn't really fit the tone. So this is going to be more like an audio biography, drama, whatever. Just do it this way, so that way I can focus on what I'm doing and I'm not worried about what's on camera or what I'm doing on camera or anything like that. So with that, we're getting into the series, getting into the hard road, the story of my life, things I went through, whatnot. Trigger warning for people. There's going to be things that get talked about in all of this that are going to be uncomfortable for people, and I apologize for that. Starting off, we'll just start right from the beginning. My parents. Because why not? You know, you're talking about your life, you start with your parents. Oh, boy. So I have my mom and my dad. Let's start with my dad, right? Brian Minikheim, also known as Fiend Gotts. He was born in New York, like I was, New York State. Same area, same little western New York, outside Cassadaga, Sinclairville area. He was the youngest of three siblings. You know, he had two older sisters, my Aunt Vicky and my Aunt Nadine. My dad was a sports guy. I think that's the only thing that really me and my dad differ on. Because, me and my dad, I've had a picture of him before. I'll try to put up another picture of me and him side by side. We look a lot alike, and we're a lot alike personality-wise. Music and movies. The only thing that we really differed on growing up was that my dad was a huge sports guy. Comes into play of how I came to be. My dad was on the wrestling team. He was on the football team. You know, he was a sports guy. He was popular, jock kind of guy, working out all the time. My mom, on the other hand, Michelle, she was softball and in band. She was also a popular kid in school. She was how do people describe this? The best way to describe it. Going through high school or any other even later points in your life, the attractive chick in the group who's the queen bitch. You know what I mean? Like, whatever she wants to do is what everyone wants to do, and if you don't want to do that, then you're wrong, and blah, blah, blah. That was my mother. Like, Mean Girls, lead girl of the group, that was my mother. That was her. Always has been. From everything I've heard from everyone, ever, it's just how she's always been. Which is, I think, the thing that makes me question how the hell her and my dad ever got together to begin with. Is because my dad, as much as he can have a temper, much like anybody can, my dad and just like my whole dad side of the family, the Minikheims, we're just genuinely nice people. Like, we get along with everyone we meet, and we try to be nice to everyone we meet, and yada yada. Like, We're in general, we're just pretty nice people, so I don't know how the hell those two even really hit it off, considering my mother's, I'm going to mean every offense by this, but just a giant walking bitch, and my dad is a chill metalhead dude. So, like, they're polar fucking opposites of people. But hey, you know, opposites attract, apparently. So, well, I don't really know everything of how my parents met or anything like that. Some people do. Some people know the whole, my parents met, blah, blah, blah. I don't know shit. I don't know jack shit about how they met. I only know that my parents were way too young to have a kid, so I was 100% an accident baby. And you may be saying, well, how do I know that? Because my dad was 19 and my dad was like 19 and my mom was 18. So, like, you know, they were like literally just graduated and I was born. Welcome me, Jokey Pants, Jared Minikheim, into the world, 1994. My parents are just graduated and they're trying to figure shit out, and then I'm brought into the world. Oh boy. But even before I was born, there were a lot of issues. Some of the family. Someone who I'm going to be talking about in this episode, who became someone who was very, very, very important in my life. My great grandmother Sonia. Love her to death. I miss her every day. She was more like a mother to me than my own mother, and I know there's some of my family, if they hear this, then they'll take offense to that, but it's true. My great grandma was there for me from the very beginning, you know, and like she was just kind of always there to help me and raise me. But I know that like when my mom was pregnant, my great grandma was not okay with it. Great grandma was extremely religious. She was born during the Great Depression. So she grew up during the time in America where it was you go to church on Sunday, you get married, you don't get divorced, and you do whatever your husband asks. That was the generation that she grew up with. So for her, my mom being pregnant, being fresh out of high school, not married, she was very not okay with it. Until I was born, and then that became, I was the first great-grandchild. So everything kind of went out the window. It's like, oh, well, I can't hate him. He's my first great-grandchild. Look at him. He's beautiful. And it was kind of how that went. And then great-grandma ended up becoming, again, like essentially a mother to me my entire life. But early on in my life was pretty easy. You know, I don't have any memories of it because I was so fucking little. So, of course, I don't have memories of it. But I do know some things that happened to me when I was too little to remember. There's two events that I've talked about with my main show, What an Oddcast, the podcast that I do. I've talked about incidents on there. I've talked about my childhood things there. One of the things that happened, my parents lived in a trailer when I was really little, which is funny. My stepdad also lived in a trailer to start off before he built the house. So like just trailer. I don't know, man. But I was a little kid. I was a toddler. I had just started to learn to walk. And everybody passed out. You know, everybody's asleep, everybody's working, everybody's young. Because I was learning to walk, I also knew how to work the door on the front of the trailer. Because, you know, it's just like the little lever, you pull it and the door opens. So I figured I knew how to open the door. So I opened up the door and then I went for a walk. And, so where this trailer park is... It was like a little road that you pulled into, and it took you. There was like a whole wooded area, but it was a whole trailer park. Well, because the road's right there, I walked from the yard onto like the drive, and then I walked up to Route 60. Which, if you're from Western New York or somewhere around there, and you know exactly what Route 60 is and how it is extremely dangerous, because much like any route or major throughway of any state or anything, people tend to just fly by on it without any shits given because you're just trying to get to the next city or whatever. Like, you're not really stopping in the small towns and people don't slow down. Somehow I didn't get hit by a car walking onto the main onto Route 60. Instead, I was found by cops who proceeded to bring me home, and then my parents got scolded for, you know, not paying attention to a 2-year-old. You know, just like, hey, you know, pay attention to your fucking kid. Which again, to fairness to my parents, again, they were like 20 years old, trying to work, just trying to figure out life, and they have a baby. So, like, shit happens when you're really young, and shit happens. And around the same time, the thing I talked about on What an Oddcast is I ate an entire beehive. I was playing in my sandbox. There was a beehive, a bunch of ground bees that, you know, made their little hive in a part of my sandbox. And my dumbass as a child dug it up and went, that looks like something I could eat. And I fucking ate it. I ate a whole beehive.
Scarred for life, kind of like what Sergeant Dan, and he went around traveling to all
a burning hatred for me.
all of us.
I'm just imagining
this
one hornet with no legs. Yeah, I'm gonna teach you how to sting today.
He has his wings still, and he just kind of rolls. Jared ate it. It's the same one that trained me and Rick to sting me.
Stung me in the neck
in fucking Texas. Right, and then it's the same one that trained the fucking wasps to kill Sven.
I think I have this episode title.
We have a me and Rick. the same goddamn wasp. He was sent back from the field to ensure that we never recorded this podcast.
Mean Rick Wasp Sergeant.
He's
The Waspinator.
Oh, the Waspinator's pretty fucking good.
Oh, he's got to be like a
So,
by now.
Mean Rick.
Major Rick. Major Mean
Major
Rick.
Major Rick.
Rick.
Mean Major Rick. That's what I call him.
Oh, MMR.
So, and I had to get rushed to the ER because I got stung to fuck. No surprise that who would have thought that a bunch of wasps, hornets, whatever, would just be like, fuck this guy eating our hive and our fellow brethren. Who would have thought that they would sting me on the inside and outside of my body doing that? But my great-grandma had laughed about it in later years of my life because she's like, you blew up like a balloon and we were so afraid. And then the doctor just said, well, you're not allergic, so just a lot of ice cream, get the swelling down. That was all they told us to do. Oh, what a life, right? What a life I've lived. Boy. Flash forward a little bit, I'm about 4 or 5 years old. Preschool, I pretty much spent all my time at my great-grandmother's. My mom and my dad got divorced before I was in school. Before I can remember, they weren't together. So it was probably around the same time as the sandbox beehive and whatnot. I was like 2-3 years old. My parents divorced. Shit happens. Whatever. I don't remember it. It's whatever. But I spent a lot of time at great-grandmother's there. It's really where I lived most of my young childhood, because all of preschool I basically lived at great-grandma's. I get dropped off there early in the morning, watch your Teletubbies and Barney and whatnot, go to preschool, come home halfway through the day because it's fucking preschool, so you don't even do a full day. And then I would just play around the trailer park, because funny enough, man, like trailer parks were a fucking thing for my life because my great-grandmother also lived in the Sinclairville trailer park, which doesn't exist anymore, I guess. Or if it does, it's even shittier, because I know when I've driven by the Sinclairville trailer park, doesn't look anything like it did when I was growing up. It's definitely not the same anymore. I don't even know if it still exists. It might have even just completely gone away at this point. People who owned it probably passed away by now. But yeah, I would just, I get home from school, I'd play with all my friends, go around and do whatever, really. We just rode our bikes, go in the woods, and we had like big giant fucking dirt ramps we would jump our bikes off of. People would get hurt, and then you'd have to run away and be like, I have no idea how I got hurt. That's weird. I don't know. Shit happens. I don't know. But I had a lot of good times at that trailer park. Just running around with friends. There was even a time my stepdad, his father, my grandpa Snyder, had gotten me these metal guns, and they were really cool. I really liked them a lot, but I kept them at my great grandma's because that's where all my friends were that I played with at that time. And my grandmother had it was like a porch, like porch, but it had windows and it had like a very flimsy little screen door on it. But the screen door was never locked, so there was a kid in the trailer park who came and he took all the guns out of the toy chest that we had on the porch, and he took a couple other of my toys that were in there. So when I came back to my grandma's the next day and things were missing, I asked my grandma, did you throw them out? Did you get rid of them? Whatever. Did you have a problem? But no, it turns out that it was just this one kid in the trailer park who was a problem child because it's the case of like your parents are alcoholic and nobody really pays attention, so you just you're causing shit to cause shit because it's just somebody's willing to pay attention to you if you do that. Unfortunately for him, the attention he got from us, and at this time this is probably like first, second grade, somewhere around there, we beat his ass. It's the easiest way to put it is we surrounded him and proceeded to beat the hell out of him until he gave us our stuff back. And that was the end of that. But that was the trailer park life, though. Was like you had your group of friends and everyone watched your back. It was literally like, for me, watching 90s and 80s movies with like the friend groups. It was like that being in the trailer park. Like, we had each other's backs. If someone got in trouble, we'd all cover for each other. Everybody looked out for each other. It was a fun time growing up. Like, I had a lot of fun growing up at that time. And that was until my great-grandmother's trailer burned down. It was bad. Okay, there's probably going to be some pauses in here as I try to just get my thoughts together on this one, because it was rough. So the night that this happened, I've talked about this before. I remember being asleep, and I remember having a dream that I was in my buddy Charles. His trailer is right next to my great grandma's, and I remember being in his living room, looking out his living room window across the way to my grandma's trailer, and just seeing this giant burned hole in the side of the trailer. And then my mom woke me up, and she didn't tell me exactly what was going on. She was just in like a panic of like, get your clothes on, like get your shoes on, let's go. We got to go now. We don't got time to get anything. Just go now. Yeah, man. And getting there, it was rough. You know, everybody was crying. Everybody was upset. Great grandma was okay. We knew she was okay, but where was grandpa? You know, being a small child and being in that situation, it was hard. It was very hard to know that there was nothing anyone could do. But the point of that is that when I looked out his living room window, is like I saw that giant hole that I had seen in my dream literally right before we got there, and it freaked me out then. It still freaks me out now to think back on. But essentially there was a bad outlet, sparked out, lit the guest room on fire, which is right next to my great-grandfather's room. My great-grandma made it out, but great-grandpa, unfortunately, he had a lot of health issues. Put it that way. I think he had like 2 different kinds of cancer going. I think he had lung and stomach cancer, something like that. It's something along those lines. Like he was not doing great. But I don't remember the exact details because I was a very small child. And great-grandma's no longer around, so it's hard to get full informations. You know, great-grandma was the one who was on top of all that. But yeah. So great-grandpa, he died of smoke. It was very unfortunate. Great-grandma felt very grateful, though. It's fucked up and dark to say and talk about, because there was a part of us all that day where, like, we felt grateful that he went out that way. Which sounds really fucked up to say, but, like, to know that he died within 2 minutes of the smoke being in his room because his body was just so weak already, compared to he could have lived another 3-4 years, but not good. Like, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, he could have lived another 3-4 years and we could have had more time with him, but he wouldn't have been in good health. You know what I mean? Like, he was rapidly declining in health. He had a hard time getting out of bed. He had a hard time leaving the house. But he was also, you know, being great-grandpa, he was from the generation of stubbornness. Like, he was in the Korean War. Being in the Korean War, he didn't ever talk about it. Like, he was one of those. Like, he was in war, but you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about anything you went through. The only thing I've ever learned about my great-grandfather being in the Korean War was he was a medic, and he talked about that much like what the Japanese did in World War II, Korean army soldiers had learned to yell for help, you know, or in English. So it would cause medics to go out, and then they would shoot the medics, because then there's no one to fix up the enemy soldiers. So my grandfather, that was the one thing my grandfather had ever learned about it, was that medics learned just because someone's yelling help doesn't mean you go out in the battlefield. You gotta double check and make sure that's actually one of your guys, because you could be walking right into a sniper shot and we have no idea. So that was my great grandfather. He was a heavy drinker, heavy smoker. That was the reason he had cancer. He refused to quit even when they told him. My great-grandma, on the other hand, didn't smoke or drink at all. Like, that woman passed away just a couple years ago in her 90s. Like, she didn't smoke, she didn't drink. She went to church every Sunday. She was part of the church community groups. Like, she was one of those. You know, it was like all that stuff was a sin. Can't do that because heaven, whatnot. She tried to get me to be religious. Never really stuck for me. Religion for me, for whatever reason, just never hit. It was never something that, I don't know, never clicked in my brain, or however you'd put it. I don't know. I just never got into it, but I always respected her and she respected me, so it was mutual. And, you know, I miss that woman. So that's the younger life. But my great-grandmother really, like, the reason I bring her up again is, like, she really was, like, she was the one to raise me. Because, like, preschool, as I said, I was there all the time. I was there all fucking day. I was there all the time. But great-grandma's where I went. You know what I mean? Like, when things got bad at home with my mom and my stepdad, like, we'd start fighting, arguing, whatever. Either they would send me there just as, like, get the fuck out of my house. I don't want to deal with you. And they'd send me there. Or I would call great-grandma and I would have her come pick me up. to avoid more issues, or just in general to get the fuck out of my house because I didn't want to fucking be there. You know, I didn't want to be around all the yelling and the hatred made to feel like I was a giant piece of shit as a child, right? So like great grandma's was where I would go. I mean, yeah, like great grandma spoiled me. Like, you know, I can't deny that. She definitely spoiled me a bit. You know, bought me the Nintendo 64. She bought me stuff like that all the time just to do it. I don't know. It's one of those things where like you're a great grandmother and it's your first great grandchild. I got special treatments on things like that, but I never looked at it as getting special. Because that's the thing, is like, it's looking back on it as an adult, it's like, yeah, you got special treatment from your great grandma because of blah blah blah, but like at the time it didn't feel like that, you know, like it was just, that's just how we bonded, was just going out and doing stuff. Just we'd sit and play Yahtzee, watch cartoons together. She'd take me to the mall. She was the one that helped me learn to drive. You know, like nobody else wanted to help me drive, so she was the one that helped me learn and get my license. So, you know, like great grandma, I miss you and I love you a lot. So that's that side of it. You know, that's if I wasn't at home getting abused, I was at great grandma's. That was really most of my childhood was back and forth there. So now let's go over to back to the regular home, right? So there's great grandma's, you know, having a lot of fun, living it up. Back at home, back at the isolated house that was my home, my childhood home, things just never went well. You know, like my stepdad came into my life when I was 3 or 4, shortly after my parents got divorced. My stepdad Jason showed up into my life, and I mean, starting out, everything was pretty fine. You know, I didn't have any issues. There wasn't anything that was really an issue to me. And then he proposed to my mom, and they got married. It was like 4 or 5. But she got married to him, and then they had my sister, Jaden, when I was 7. And as I talked about with like the first generalization, that's when everything started to kind of change in my world. Like if I wasn't at great grandma's having a good time, if I came home, it was Jason very much wanted me to be somebody that I wasn't. And I think that's how he's always viewed me, is that if I was going to be his son, then I had to be how he wanted me to be, and I wasn't allowed to be any other way, which was you're going to be a farmer, you're going to be a country boy, and you're going to listen to country music. We're not listening to any of the metal or any of that shit. We're not into horror movies. Like, nope, we're country boys, and that's how I'm going to raise you. That's what you're going to do. And then it wasn't my personality, you know, like I have nothing against anyone. Like if you're on a farm, you're a farmer, you do animals, you do whatever. I have no problem with it. I've worked on farms. I've met a lot of farmer people, and I'm friends with people who live on farms and do that stuff. I have no problem with it. It's just not something that it's not something that is me. Like for me, I like to write, I like to draw, obviously I like podcasting, you know, I'm doing all this. I like making jokes. I like doing stuff like that. So I was just the complete opposite of the kind of person he wanted. So after my sister was born, like that started to become more of a contention because he had a girl. So he wanted the boy to be a specific way. And that's just not how I was. So we butted heads on that all the time. Because if I didn't want to do something, then I was the problem. You know, I wasn't a good kid because I didn't want to do the things he wanted to do, which is a whole thing. That's kind of the ongoing theme of everything in my life, you know. But yeah, so Jaden gets born. Me and Jason start butting heads even more because like I said, he really starts hammering in what he wants a son to be. But he didn't have the, I don't know, I guess compassion in the brain, like that parental compassion of like accepting your child for who they are or whatever. Like, no, I had to be certain ways. But to end out this episode here, so as we start to butt heads, things start getting, you know, obviously start getting worse and worse. For me, the more I got abused, the more I started to just shut myself inward. Like I was afraid to be myself a lot of the time. And here's the thing that I've learned. You know, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but the more you bottle up your actual feelings and your actual personality and who you actually are, there can be the negative consequence to that you become bitter and rage-filled, which is what happened to me. Is the more I tried to conform to what they wanted and I stopped trying to just be who I was, how I felt, I just started to get angry. You know, everything became a reason to throw hands, to scream. Everything was a reason. And that just escalated things even more. And eventually I ended up getting sent away for the first time when I was about 7 years old, because Jaden had just been born. She was a baby. My parents started a fight with me, and then they waited until it escalated to the point that Jason was getting physical with me. And then my mom started recording, and they presented this to to counselor, whatever, as like, see, this is what he's like right off the bat. This is what it's like every day, all day. Even as a child, I sat there having to sit through that and just going like, that's not what it is though. This, like, the video you guys are taking is like 20 minutes into the fact, when you guys, like, because you guys don't let up. Because that was the thing with my mom, my stepdad, I probably mentioned it in the first episode, was like, they didn't de-escalate shit. They were the escalator. So like, if I walked away and went to my room or did anything, they would literally burst open the door to continue screaming at me, yelling at me, shove me around, whatever they wanted to do, they were just going to do it, and I had to take it. But that's not the story that they told. So I ended up having to go to a place, a very not fun place called Jones Hill, which is a child psychiatric ward that used to be in Western New York. Last I've looked into it, it looks like it's shut down. Thank fucking God, because Jones Hill was, when you see a movie and they talk about a mental health facility that doesn't get a budget and is running on a shoestring, and there's corners being cut and there's abuses happening, but nobody can do anything about it because budgets and whatnot. That was Jones Hill in the day. It was not a good place, not a fun place at all. It was basically just one giant building that the bottom half of the building was like rehab, like you had to go there if you were doing physical therapy, things like that. But then you take an elevator, and the very top floor, one half of it was an adult wing and the other half of it was the kid wing, and it was a psychiatric ward on the very, very top. And that was Jones Hill. And you say Jones Hill back in the day in my school growing up, and you could feel the tension grow in the room of all the kids around you as everyone's hair stood on end. What everyone knew of Jones Hill was that if someone went there, they didn't come back. And if they did come back, they weren't the same. It was very much like that boogeyman, like the myth of Western New York where I was growing up. Like, that was Jones Hill. Jones Hill was that thing of, you tell that as like the campfire boogie story in the middle of the hallway. And just to sell the point, I'm gonna end out the episode. This is where the next episode will pick up, is me going over places that I was in, and how things just continued to escalate. This episode probably not gonna have a whole ton in it as far as stuff, and you're probably gonna be like, well, this episode doesn't really seem like blah blah blah. We'll get there. We're gonna be getting to all the stuff. So Jones Hill, it's been rebranded UPMC whatever now, but back in the day it was called Jones Hill. The reviews for it even now are still only at a 2 out of 5 stars, and that's because some of the reviews are coming from the actual medical side of things, where like they were at the like an actual physical therapy whatever, because as I said, it's all the same building. So the good reviews are for the physical therapy side of like, oh, they helped me with this, blah blah. All the 1 stars are all the mental health, and I would read the reviews, but a lot of them are very long. But a lot of them say the same things, which are the things that I experienced with Jones Hill, which is inexperienced staff who are unwilling to listen. There's even parents who leave reviews of they didn't even do an actual assessment, that all they did was belittle them and tell them that they were wrong and their child this, child that, which is accurate. That's the kind of experience I had with Jones Hill. You weren't so much a patient, you were just a thing. So I'm going to end this episode out. Very traumatic things, I feel. At least I think there'll be very traumatic things for people to hear, things that I experienced when I was there the first time. I was there a couple times in this span of time, up until 5th grade. So 2nd to 5th grade, I was in and out of this place a lot because of my parents. I've talked to people who have been in prison, and people who have been in jail, prison, things like that. I can relate to, because being in places like this is a lot like that. You get your 2 meals a day. I mean, technically 3, but the lunch the lunch was never anything. It was like a soup and a cheese sandwich, and that was your lunch. Breakfast was like you got like a bowl of oatmeal and a piece of toast and an orange juice. There's your breakfast. And then you go to school, which was just a room at the other end of there was like, you walk into the child wing. Let me lay this out for you. You walk in, there's the front desk. To the left, there's a quiet room, the lunch room, and then there's like 2 rooms for parents to sit and talk with you, meeting rooms, whatever. This is a very tiny space. You take a right and you go around the desk, and if you take an immediate right, that takes you to the rec room and the, I don't know, like nurse's station, and then there was like a little like kitchen. They called it the kitchen, but it was just like cabinets with some crackers and shit. Opposite side of those rooms, you had one phone. There was one phone that people could use to call out, which never fucking worked right, and it was always awkward to use because you had to sit right next to the desk, so you had to be careful what you'd say, because if you said certain things, the staff would hear it and you'd get shit for it. You wouldn't think that because you're on a phone call with your family, but if you talked shit about like they're treating me this way, that way, or whatever, they would end your phone call and you would be locked in your room because you were disciplinary. But if you didn't take the right and go into the rec room area, there was a long hallway, and that was all our rooms and another quiet room. And then there was like 7 rooms, and the rooms had 2 beds in them, and it was typically 2 girls to a room, 2 boys to a room. At the end of the hallway, then there was also a TV room, which was just a room that had a chalkboard, a TV and a couch. And then right next to that was the classroom, which was just a big square room with a desk in it and a couple tables. And schooling, in case you're wondering what school was like if you were in this place, your school would essentially just send a packet of like, this is what we're working on, and then they would just give you whatever the fuck they felt like, basically. You were basically just doing like test packets for like 2 hours, and then you were free reign. I say free reign, but it's not really free reign. You just go to the rec room, and we'd watch movies, or sometimes they'd bring in a Super Nintendo, and we'd be able to play that a little bit, depending. And then you have dinner, which dinner was like hospital food, so it wasn't very good food at all. It'd be like a flat piece of steak with a couple green beans and mashed potato. There's your dinner. That's all you get. And there were some staff that were cool. They would do snacks at night before we went to bed, which was just, for people who are in nursing, I already know you know what this snack is because my mother was a nurse, and this was a thing that all the fucking nurses ate. And when I told my mom that that's what we ate for snacks, she couldn't believe that that's all they let us have for snacks, because nurses do it because it's quick and easy and they're in the middle of shit. A packet of graham crackers and a little tub of peanut butter and a little cup of peanut butter, and that was your before bed snack. That's it. The staff, there were only ever like 1 or 2 good people. I remember one woman named Miss Rita. She was a British woman who worked at the place. She was very nice. She was a very down-to-earth woman. We had conversations all the time. I remember specifically there was one we were watching Hocus Pocus, and we got into a discussion about like actual witches and like the actual history of it. And she's like, no, it's actually quite interesting. And like that was the whole thing. It was like we had a whole nice little conversation. And like I had moments like that. Because unlike everyone else that was in the places I was in, I didn't have super big issues like everyone else. Like, I could actually have conversations and could maintain myself, while everyone else was, wanting to throw chairs or destroy objects, or was in the corner crying because they are having some kind of mental episode that just gotta let them cry it out kind of thing. I don't know. That was the kind of shit that I was doing. Like, it was literally a loony bin, and I was just like a person who had trauma, but I wasn't mentally ill, and I was just around all of this shit. I watched people get tackled to the ground. Yeah, and I was tackled to the ground by staff a few times. Like, there were definitely times where, like, I would hit my point of just, I need to get the fuck out of here. I'm done with this. I want to go home. I'm done. But that was always a bad choice. Because protocol is that the staff would tackle you to the ground. You'd have 2 people on your arms. Well, technically there would be like one person who's holding your arms, they'd have one person at your waist, and they'd have another person holding your legs, and they pull your pants down. That's right, they pull your pants down, you're bare ass in it, and they would stick you with a needle. And let me tell you folks that the size of the needle did not matter, because it felt like every time you got these shots, it felt like they were taking a rolling pin size needle and jamming it into your ass cheek and injecting you with liquid hot magma. That is how it felt under your skin the minute that shit hit you. And it was a tranquilizer that would knock you out from anywhere for 8 to 10 hours. And you think I'm kidding, but I'm really not. Because even after you woke up, you initially wake up, you don't know where the fuck you are or who the fuck you are for like a good 10 minutes after. Like, you don't know what the fuck is going on. I had that happen to me more times than I can count. I watched it happen to people more times than I can count. It sucked every time. And it was always traumatic watching it happen to someone else. It was traumatic having it happen to me. I've never looked at my ass cheeks, but I imagine there's probably some scars all over my ass cheeks from the amount of times I got those shots. There was even a few times at the second place I'll get into the next episode. We go over the other places I went. There was one that I almost escaped from and then got tackled real fucking hard. And boy, let me tell you, child body could take that hit better than I could being an adult now. So that's this episode of this. It's probably a bit more rambly and all over the place, but I at least ended it where I wanted to, which was getting to the traumatic things in my childhood, which was these places. Jones Hill was just the tip of the iceberg, and I was here multiple times. As I said, from 2nd to 5th grade, I was here more times than I can count, and they were all for various times. Sometimes I would be there for 3 months. Sometimes I was there for 6 months. What we'll get into in the next episode, I was there for like a year to 2 years at a time. You know, there was a point I was there for like, I think I was there for 2-3 years in that system, or at least it felt like it. You know, I think it was more like a year, but it felt longer than that. And it's also because I was so in and out of the places that a lot of it just kind of blends together. Like, I would be in it, like at this point, first getting there, I was there probably like 5 months the first time, went home, and then of course nothing at home changed. So, you know, me, stepdad, mom all start fighting again anyway. And then I was right back again probably within 6 months. And then I was there again for another couple months. And that was just the cycle that kept repeating. And you may be asking, well, why didn't anything change or blah, blah. And that's because my mom and my stepdad continuously blamed me. And this is why I struggle with kids and parents kind of stuff, because as a kid, no one believed me. No one believed my side of it. No one ever even cared to bother to like look at what I was saying. It was always just, you're a child, you don't know what you're talking about. Your parents know what's best. Your parents know, you don't, because you're a child. And meanwhile, I was the ones that was always talking about like, no, you don't understand. Like, you're saying for me to do all these things for calming down, whatever, but like, what about them? Because, like, Jason will follow me wherever I go and continue to, like, harass me and beat me. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing something to calm down. He's going to continue to just do shit. But no one ever listened to that. It was always that I was the instigator in the problem and that no one else was doing anything wrong. Hence, the cycle just repeated my entire life. But as I said, next episode, I'll get into the other places I was in. This is just the tip of the iceberg. That was the first starting at Jones Hill. Being 7 years old in a place with scary things going on. This is also the point where I had to grow up faster than I should have. You know, there's the people who grew up because you had to take care of your siblings and your parents weren't there. For me, I had to grow up at 7 years old. I had to grow up because I was surrounded by so many people that if I didn't learn how to communicate with people, how to read a room, read a situation, which is why I am the way I am now, where if I go somewhere and I don't know people, I don't talk. I come off as very shy. I just don't say anything. And it is because I am listening and I am learning everybody's personality that I'm around so that I know what I could joke about, what I could talk about, things of that nature. And if I have to ask things, I will. But that all stems back to that, being 7 years old and listening to people scream about things that I had no idea what they were talking about, or watching people get tackled to the ground over little things. And I had to learn very quickly how to survive, basically, is just, how do I communicate with this? And did I manipulate people? Did I use people? I did. 100% I did when I was in those places, because that was the only fucking way to survive. It was either that or get eaten alive. And I refused to give up and die. So I instead matured very fucking quickly as a child. And it saved me a lot of trouble in those places. It helped me get on the good side of staff, other patients that were there that in the long run helped me get through those places without going insane myself. So, and that's something I'm going to be talking about with the next episode, is where I'm going to really try to do more of a dive into things I experienced in these places. And why mental health to me is a serious thing, and it should be taken seriously, and it should be explored seriously for people. But until I get to that next episode, stay out, stay happy. Look out for each other. Always look for the best things in life. And I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye, everybody.